Good morning, everyone. My name is Reverend Cherie Ruffo, and it is Sunday, April 3rd. Welcome to Unity Radiant Light. I'll be continuing the Nag Hammadi series today, the Treatise on the Resurrection. Looking forward to this. As I say every week, it's a very interesting gospel, and I look forward to exploring this in all of the Nag Hammadi series with you. If you have been studying along with me on this, the book that I primarily use is the Gnostic Bible. You can find that on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, almost any, I think even Aid Books, which has used books, most of them in great condition. You can find this Bible everywhere. Also, I do use Ascension Rising. I watch a lot of the shows that are on Gaia.com, Gaia TV. It's an app you can get. But if you're looking, you don't have to spend money on this either. YouTube has the audio readings of the different Nag Hammadi scriptures, the codices they're called, and I watch a lot of the YouTube specials on that. I listen to what the different scholars have to say with each of these treaties or codices, as they're called. And if you haven't been here, if this is your first week, we are studying the codices, they're called, that were found in Nag Hammadi, next to the Nile in Egypt in 1945. And we're finding the Gospels have been found, the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's all different Sumerian tablets. During the 20th century, it was pretty remarkable that so many of these lost teachings were found. I don't believe that anything's by coincidence. And it was really in the 1990s that we started getting the translations for them and then putting it together. And one of the things we realized is that the teachings were there all along. We may not have seen them in the general public, but the mystery schools that were founded thousands of years ago have been teaching a lot of these same concepts. We'll see them when you look at different teachings. Like we study the Law of One on Monday. We see a lot of Monday evenings. We see a lot of the same types of teachings in there. So the truths were never really lost. They were always there. But now they're in the general public. We can read them. We can discuss them, and really look to see what the differences are between that and the Bible as we know it. And we know that in the 3rd century there was the Council of Nicene. It was in around 325 CE, where all the different chapters of the Bible, including probably the Nag Hammadi, and were all looked at this council to determine what would be part of the Bible. And it was determined at that time that the Nag Hammadi chapters, the Gnostic chapters, were not put into the Bible. And there's a lot of questions about why. A lot of people say it was about power because they taught us that we had so much power within. But I really think that they're really deep. These chapters really go deep, and it may just be that they were not well understood at the time. Could be for a lot of different reasons. But the good news is that we've always had teachings. They were there. They were in the background, but now they're becoming in the forefront. And I really think that I love the Bible, and it is for unity. It is our textbook that we use, and we interpret it metaphysically. I think that these scriptures really fill it out, the ones that were not put in the Bible, because it gives us more of the blueprint. We have the beginning, we have the middle, we have the end. And when you look at that, when you look at the Bible, especially when you look at the Hebrew scriptures, which is the Old Testament, they always talked about the God out here, the one that was judging us and waiting for us to screw up so we could fall. This tells a really different story. And Jesus came, and he really came, when he came in, he started with the Lord's Prayer by saying Abba, which is, some interpret as Father, but really means Daddy. So he started that impersonal God that was out there that was judging us, the authoritarian, became all of a sudden closer to us just by that one word, Abba. And so he was teaching something very differently. He was teaching from the heart. And what I've found with all of these chapters, and as we continue on, pulling back these layers on them, is that there's much more too. Everything that comes from these scriptures is not so much based here, and they actually identify that in this treatise today, but from the heart, and it comes from inside. So the experience that we have doesn't come from us somebody out here teaching us. Now, I love us getting together. We're a spiritual family, and I would be very sad if we didn't meet anymore. But we're here to celebrate this together and learn together and remember who we are. So these codexes are really meant to awaken us to the truth. And as we go through it, we see so many confirmations of things. We also have seen them in the Dead Sea Scrolls that were found 2 years after the Nag Hammadi teachings. And also there's a lot of Coptic teachings that have shown up. There's so much that we have out there that when we start to journey through this, we can see how the teachings align with each other. The other thing that we can really see, and as I'm kind of a geek when it comes to studying, really looking at this type of thing, and so I really love the scholarly papers and shows. And one of the things that they said that they're also seeing, the scholars, is how there's a direct correlation to Buddhism, the teachings in India, yoga, all of those things. But it makes a lot of sense because truth is truth. And it can come to us in many different ways. And what they're not saying is that we have to be a certain religion, that we have to be from a certain school of thought, that we have to adhere to really strict, these guidelines that are created by humans. And the truth is that we are all children of God. We all have that spark of divinity within us. And this treatise really talks about that today. So our journey through the Nag Hammadi codexes so far, we've gone through 3 of them. And the first one was the prayer of the Apostle Paul. And then we looked at the secret book of James and the gospel of truth. And what we found, and with each one, like I said, is this rich blueprint. We're really getting to know Jesus' teachings at a deeper level. What they were here for. Starting to pull back some of that are myths surrounding him. We're not just looking at the story. What I love about these is that we actually step into the story because it really pertains to each one of us on a personal level. We can take what we're reading and apply it to our own lives. And we can do that with the Bible too. But there's definitely a difference. I'm seeing that in this. And this treatise, The Resurrection, that we're looking at today, was written in Greek, and they're not sure who the author was. But it's a letter to Reginus. And I'll start it off a little bit, and then we'll stop and talk about some of the concepts, but I'll start reading it. Reginus, my son, some people want to become intellectuals. That is their goal when they try to explain unsolved problems. And if they are successful, they have an exalted opinion of themselves. So we see right here, just in that first paragraph of this, the same thing that we've been seeing throughout the scriptures is that, yes, we can use our intellectual mind, and actually we have to because we're having our human experience. But there's something else here. We have to go into the heart. This is about becoming heart-centered. And the one thing that this deals with in this letter, he goes right into, it's believed to have been Valentinian. We talked about that last week. It's the group that was part of the Gnostics and more of the scholarly branch, that they're really starting to look at the resurrection. What did that mean? And we're entering Easter, Holy Week, and we have to really think about, we saw what happened to Jesus that week, and that he went through the crucifixion, which was horribly painful, and then he resurrected. And there was a big question, and this has been one of the biggest questions that we've had since this happened is, did the resurrection really happen? Some people say, no, it didn't, or I've heard stories where they say that it was Paul who actually was mistakenly crucified. There's all sorts of stories around it. So where do people come out on that? And what did Jesus do? Was he the only Son of God who could do that, who could resurrect and become the best Christ? Because Christ was not his last name. It's becoming the perfection of what we are meant to be. So when we think about that and we start to consider that, we look at this letter, this treatise really describes and explains what was believed to what the Valentinians believed. And what they believed is that the resurrection, reincarnation, and survival after death all existed. The resurrection happened to Jesus in his human experience, but that we would be missing the deepest part of it if we just looked at it in the human experience. That we'd be missing the spiritual aspect of this. That had my attention. And as I was reading further and looking at this further, the author really talks about that if we just look at this human resurrection, that we're missing the spiritual resurrection. It's that because of what we have in humanity is based a lot on illusion. And that Jesus, when he came, he said in the New Testament, he said more than once, this too you can do. And he said also you can do this and better. So he was telling us at that point and giving us clues to our divinity. He's talking about that. He said the kingdom of heaven is where? Within. Right out and said it. That we have this divinity within us. Well, this treaty really talks about it. And he talks about Paul and says that Paul was the messenger or the apostle. And Paul said, we suffered with him, that is, Jesus. We arose with him. And we went to heaven with him. So the treatise understands that as in Jesus' human experience, he went through tremendous suffering. And that is a condition of humanity. We go through a lot of suffering. And he said that death can occur in this world, but it does not occur beyond this world in the spiritual, which is really was really very different from what the beliefs were at that time. And that's where we start to hear a lot about the transcendence. And what Jesus did that day, and we talk about this in Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who actually, all of their teachings were written before the Nag Hammadi or Dead Sea Scrolls were found. They understood this information from what they had learned, what they had come up, but also from within. So it wasn't a secret until these were found. The information can be obtained. And as this treatise is talking about, as Charles and Myrtle Fillmore did, it came from within. So when we have resurrection, when I first studied it in Unity, we talked about what that meant. And when you look at it in the metaphysical sense, Jesus was crucified, and that was letting go of his humanity, that he let go of his humanity at that point. When he resurrected in spirit form or light form, or as some believe human form, when he came back 3 days later, he had let go of his personality. And we say, okay, well, what does that mean? We know we have a soul. We come in, we travel with that soul when we come into human form. But we also have our personality and we have our ego. At that point, when Jesus resurrected, he let that go. And that was the teaching for us, is that we can transcend any limitations we put on ourselves. We have that within us. As Jesus taught us, as he had, that we all have this divinity within us. So this treatise is really about the liberation, our liberation. The author wrote, this is the spiritual resurrection or resurrection of the spirit, which swallows up the resurrection of the soul and the resurrection of the flesh. So at this point, we ask the question, which resurrection are we really looking at? Are we looking at the human, and yet knowing, yes, it did happen? Or are we looking at what Jesus did, he accomplished? in the spiritual resurrection, and also told us that we have the ability to do. We can let go of every limitation that we have put on ourselves, and we can rise up. We can resurrect. So how did that start? How did that happen? And they go on to say, they talk about God became a human son. And while he was in flesh, and after he revealed himself to be the Son of God, he lived in this world that you live in, speaking upon the law of nature, which I call death. And Jesus embraced both qualities. He lived here, he had his human experience, and we know every day wasn't perfect for him. We know there were times when he was frustrated. I would love to have that conversation with him, wouldn't you? Like I said, I can just hear him saying, oh, humans, because of how we react to things. But he always knew that there was this divinity in him too, and that he could conquer death with it, and that he could restore, and they talk about the divinity being restored. Well, the truth is, it never has to be restored, because it's always there. It is always inside of us, and we may need to awaken to it. But every path that we're on, and I believe this is why there's no specific path by religion. Jesus didn't tell us we had to be at church every week, didn't set up those rules for us, is because all paths lead to God. Now, some may be a little more windy than others, a little longer, but it all leads right to this light and this truth of who we are. So what happened when we came here is we were a divine being born into a human body. But Jesus taught us that is not the end of it. He laid aside this perishable world, and he rose up from it. And by doing this, he taught of him. Paul said, we suffered with him, we rose with him, we entered into heaven with him. What does that mean? Yes, we're here, we wear this garment of humanity. We have this, some people call it the meat suit. We have this. But there's so much more to us. That doesn't mean we shouldn't take care of this human experience. We're here for a reason, to have that experience. We're here to learn it, be an expression of God. But as it says in here, this is the resurrection of the spirit, which swallows up the soul and the flesh. So when we look at who and what we are, we can be this divine being, shining that light while we're in this body. And he goes on to say in the letter, it's because of faith. It's because when we have our faith, the faith that knows without a doubt, even before we can truly see it, that these things are happening, that this is true. It opens us up to all of these ideas. And he said that they called Jesus after this happened, the destroyer of death. Because really, he did destroy death, right? It wasn't just us falling at that time. And believing that he had to rise again for us to be able to experience this. We don't have to wait for a certain day. What this treatise tells us, and what Jesus was telling us, is that we can do it right now, anytime. The resurrection is here. And it's our choice whether we're going to stand up, awaken to who we are, and shine that light through this world. He says, we shall enter into the wisdom of those who have known the truth. So the truth was already there. He was just helping to open us up to this. And this letter talks about this. And he says, never doubt the resurrection, my son Reginos. A small part of us is what broke loose to make up the world. What encompasses everything, the realm of all, did not come into being because it was. You see, it was already there. This power that we have inside us, we don't need to reach out and have someone put it inside of us. It was always there. So he says the resurrection is spiritual. The body will perish, but the divinity in us lives on in spirit. And everything else we believe is an illusion. So once again, we hear that illusion, that piece of the illusion. He said, we have received salvation from start to finish. Let us think in this way, but let us comprehend in this way. It's a transformation of things, a transformation into newness. Incorruptibility overflows corruption. Light flows over darkness, swallowing it. Fullness fills what it lacks. These are the symbols of the resurrection. This is the truth of who we are. And he goes on and talks about us not getting lost in the details of it. He said, just use our faith, open our minds and our hearts. We don't have to be caught. We don't have to be scattered or being in bondage. And as I'm reading this, it reminded me a lot of, for anybody who's read H. Emily Cady's Lessons in Truth. For the first chapter in her book says, it talks about us, liberty or bondage. That's the title. And it's about this very same thing. Are we going to be caught in these details that are going to keep us in limitation? Are we going to open ourselves up and allow us to be who we really are? Just step into that truth. So he goes on and he says everybody has a way to do it. We have to understand that we have to let go of the illusion. So he goes on and he says that these words I've received from the generosity of my Lord, Jesus the Christ. And I love how he says Jesus the Christ. Not Jesus Christ, Jesus the Christ. I have taught you and your brothers and sisters, who are my children, about them, and have omitted nothing that may strengthen you. If there is anything among these written words that is obscure, ask and I will explain. Do not be worried about consulting anyone in your circle who can help. Many await what I have written you. I say peace and grace among them. We already have the truth here to set us free, if we choose to use it. We just have to open our spiritual eyes to recognize it. How much more simple do we need it to be? And I don't know about you, but as I read through this, I felt truth in every cell of my body. I felt it ring, and I felt the beauty of this, the simplicity of it, about who and what we are. How do you feel? Just kind of check in with yourself. How are you feeling about this? About this beautiful truth? This truth that tells us this light that we have within us is divine. It's one of the most beautiful love stories I think I've ever read, because it talks about that love that's within. So we don't have to do anything. We just have to open our spiritual eyes to recognize it. And that's what we're here to do. And I'm just so grateful to be on this journey with all of you as we study this and we discuss it, and I let go of my embedded theology and I stopped ducking, waiting for the lightning to strike as I'm looking at these different thoughts, and just open my heart to receiving these truths. So as we look to the past here and whatever else we're studying for the answers to who and what we are, I think the most important question really comes down to for today is, how do we become in service to others? How do we become better caretakers of this planet we live on? The descriptions that we're getting of these people and Jesus' life and what the meaning behind it being heart-centered. How can we become a kind and compassionate society? Create a society that's perhaps greater than any that's ever been on this planet. We have these opportunities. We know these truths. The truths haven't changed as we read them. We know that they're here. Where do we fall in this? I think unity is the answer. And I do believe in unity worldwide ministries, but I'm not talking about that unity. I'm talking about unity among ourselves, because this divinity is this link. It creates a oneness. We are all one. Coming together to create a world that works for all. That's what Unity Worldwide Ministry says. I believe in it 100%. Unity doesn't mean that we have to have any same belief systems, but we just have to understand that there's a divinity within us. We have to understand who and what we are. And as the first unity principle says, there's one power and one presence in the universe. That's God the good. But we also know, from especially after reading the treatise, that the second unity principle says that divinity is in every one of us. So look at that light within you. When you look in the mirror, you're looking at God. If you're not comfortable with that, you can say child of God. Whatever, you can call it whatever you want. As in the shack that most of us have read and watched the movie, God was African-American woman named Papa. Doesn't matter what you call it. You recognize that divinity. Look to people, your neighbor, to whoever is in your life, and you're looking at that same divinity. And shine your light. The world needs it, and it needs it now. So thank you for being on this journey with me. I love you all. And I just invite you to get comfortable as we move into meditation. So we say our meditation affirmation: I am open and receptive to the spirit of truth, healing what needs to be healed and revealing what needs to be revealed. And we know more so now what being open and receptive to the spirit of truth is. This truth that's out there. Allowing ourselves to be healed on whatever level we need it. And these truths to be revealed to us. So I just invite you to, you may close your outer eyes if you're comfortable with that. You can relax. As we take a nice deep breath in, all the way down into our stomachs. And breathe out. Next deep breath in. We just release any of those old beliefs that we may have. Things that no longer serve us. Breathing in our own time, releasing our own time. Release those limitations that you may have placed on yourself. This sacred wisdom that has been given to us by Jesus will lead us to the right experiences, being in the right place, the right moment. And one of the ways to open up more to it, more fully, is to recognize when we're taking that breath, that sacred breath in, we're feeling and experiencing the I am, the spirit. There is a part of us that is not here. That is our spirit. We can vibrate and have that direct connection all the time with our soul. And as we raise that vibration in these breaths, we feel the chakras opening up. The crown chakra opens up to the 6 additional chakras. It opens up to the galactic center, allowing these truths to just gently enfold us. The base chakra and the balls of our feet are open to the earth, to Gaia. We feel that energy flowing through us from both and as us. Jesus said, the simple presence is the shepherd of ripeness, which also means I am the good shepherd. I am. If you would like to place your hand on your heart, you know where that experience begins. As we allow our breath to slow down, our nervous system relaxes. We just calm down as we just release that outer world. Fully opening ourselves up to that inner experience. As the rhythm of our heart and our breath brings us into this cadence, we know There's so much more to us than just the human body. We feel the spirit. We just feel as it travels through every cell in our body. You may feel some tingling in those cells. You may hear music. It's the music of your soul. It is you. The truth of who you are, without limitation. And as we go into the silence, I just invite you to just let go of all thoughts and just be in this place of peace. And just allow every cell of your body to awaken more fully to the truth of who you are. And enjoy this presence. This presence of the divine, which is also you in the silence. This is you. In all your magnificence. And as you're coming back, just notice any thoughts that may come to you. Any revelations? And let's fill our hearts with gratitude. Gratitude for the elegance of this whole system of who we are. For these mysteries that are being revealed. For our way shower, Jesus, all that he brought to us, and all the guides and masters, the teachers. We are so grateful. And as we're in this prayer field, we can open it up right now to anybody who would like to pray for others. You can say a person's name out loud with conviction, and we'll pray along with you. You can hold them in your heart, and we're still praying with you in this oneness. To all the places in the planet where there's strife, we hold them all in this field of love and peace. The floor is open.
World peace.
For all those that we're praying with, those who are here today, we see it right. We know that it is already done. That who and what we are, we can never be anything less than perfection. We see all people that have a prayer for health. We see every cell in their bodies working in perfect and divine order. We inherited, as children of God, we've inherited prosperity. And we see prosperity in each person's lives in every area. And from this comes that inner joy, that inner awareness that we have, that opens us up to be fully peaceful. And we know that who and what we are comes from this field, the substance of love. We can never be anything less. And for that, we are so grateful. So we say, thank you, and so it is.